a time like this, I recognize the feeling that it must have been when the tall guy from Springfield got ready to go on the train to Washington, and he said, "To this place and for the kindness of these people, I owe everything." So yeah, we owe a lot to this group here. Thank you. And I want to say more about this place, Springfield, later. Also in this room are a lot of people who have helped me along the way. Occasionally we steer in the wrong direction, and some of you have kind of taken me aside, take me to lunch or something, and kind of gently remind me we don't do it that way, or whatever. But most of you are in this room, so you know who you are. Thank you. In the early days of Illinois Times, I knew Dan Malkovich. Some of you might remember that name. He was head of the Department of Conservation for a while, and I knew him from Southern Illinois. But Dan said that our newspaper, the Illinois Times, has heart. And whether we did or not, I always thought of that and wanted to be that way. And we don't always get it right, but we don't equate meanness with courage. We try to have heart. Heart is a small town value, and I want to tell you about my small town beginnings. In Mount Vernon, I worked for my high school newspaper, and the Daily, the Mount Vernon Register News, asked me to do a play review. I think it was Brigadoon. And so that was my first outing into daily newspaper, and I just poured my heart into this assignment, and it was in the paper. I got a byline, and I was so proud, and people were saying what a good thing it was. And then I got a call that night when the paper came out and said, "This is Mrs. Biaggi, the art teacher." And I just want to tell you that you didn't say anything about the work that our art students did to prepare for this play. And we built all the sets, and no mention. And I was so upset. And there went my triumph. And then I got another call, and it was Orion Metcalf, the owner or the publisher of the Mount Vernon Register News. He said, "Bud, I want to tell you that was a great review you published." And he said that it was so good that I want you to write another review for tomorrow's paper. And I said, "Well, thank you, that's wonderful. You give me another chance like that." And he said, "And this time, Bud, would you say something about the damn scenery?" So this place, this small town place of Springfield, it's bigger than Mount Vernon, but it's still a small town in a lot of ways, has helped the Illinois Times in a lot of ways. One way is the pure fact of saturation, is what we call our newspaper circulation. In Springfield, we print 20,000 papers, and with that, we reach at least 40% of the households in Springfield. And that's not to mention our online readership. The Chicago Reader, that was at its height, would publish 100,000 papers a week. And they would reach like 10% of the households in Chicago. So people know who we are in Springfield when they wouldn't if we were in a big city. And another way that Springfield has helped. For a long time, I was in the national organization of weekly publishers, and a lot of them were in big cities and fancy cities, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Boston. And when they were at their height, well, these big hedge funds would swoop in and buy them up, and $15 million for their weekly newspaper back in the glory days. They didn't do that in Springfield. We didn't have to fight off. We didn't have to fight off the hedge funds here, so we survived. You know, back for a long time while I was publishing, people say, "Oh, you own your own newspaper? That's so cool." And now they say, "Oh, you own your own newspaper, you poor thing." We have a good time anyway. We're small, but we're not narrow here in Springfield. And I know that you didn't come here just to be nice. One reason you came is because our nation is seriously challenged these days. When Lincoln left Springfield, he said he faced a task greater than that which faced Washington. Well, we may, in some ways, now have a task greater than that which faced Lincoln. And we must take it on without guns. The administration in Washington is failing and flailing. Somebody can't take a joke from a comedian, and then he goes to the United Nations and makes the world leaders laugh. We remember when he rode the escalator down, but the other day he couldn't make the escalator go up. But in a way, all that's a distraction. We'll let Dick take care of what's going on out there. Our job is local journalism. Local Journalism Matters is the name of our new nonprofit that will become the owner of the Illinois Times and Springfield Business Journal, and Michelle will tell you more about that later. But local journalism sounds small. How can that possibly save the world? Well, it may be the only thing that can possibly change the world. All stories we hear are local. If we want to write about Washington, we can go talk to the senator who lives down the street. Even J.B. Pritzker has a house in town. We can go talk to him. And if we're concerned about Gaza, we can ask the Jewish community here and our Palestinian friends here. It's a local story. But we not only try to localize national stories, we need to nationalize local stories. History happens here. It just doesn't get the recognition it deserves. When the Illinois Times first started, they had a house in the Lincoln home area, 512 South 8th Street. Some of you might remember that. And then soon after I got there, and I don't think this is the reason, but the National Park Service had a great idea of tearing down everything that wasn't there when Lincoln was there. So that's why there's so many vacant lots around Dick's office, and a lot of tourists are there. So the birthplace of Illinois Times got knocked down, and there's not even a plaque there to recognize what happened. Maybe we can work on that. But we make history here in a lot of ways all the time. And some of it sounds kind of plain. I've worked for a long time with Polly Poskin, and one of the things we tried to do, are still trying to do, is to reform the waste hauling system. I've almost got it done about 20 years ago, and then something happened at the last minute, and the deal fell through, and Dick, maybe you can help us with that when you get retired. But Polly's still trying to, everywhere she goes, she said, we need bulky item pickup. You know, it's simple. We put it out on the curb and you pick it up, but it's too complicated. Can't quite figure it out in Springfield. There are other local heroes. The first time we did a story on Jennifer Gill, she was the principal at McClernand School, and we had a picture of her on the playground with the children. So she has always been the chief advocate of kids who can't read. She builds high schools, and she gets us through the pandemic, but mostly it's the children that she cares about. And we did a story after Governing Magazine did a series about segregation in Springfield. We commissioned them to do a story just on the school district. And Jennifer's motto was, what she told them is, I don't worry about the school systems that are in the communities around Springfield. What I care about is to serve the students that are here. So heroes like that we celebrate. We had a mayor a long time ago named Mike Houston. This was in his first term, and I had just finished renovating the first house that I ever did, and the mayor gave me a plaque. And we had a ceremony. I don't think there was anybody there but me and Mike, but I thought, this is wonderful getting honored for this, and the city's probably going to want to step in and renovate a lot more houses, or at least give me a lot of money so I could do it on. And so I asked Mike about what's next, and what's his recommendation. He said, well, do another one. Do it again. So I'm afraid that if I asked Mike, what do you think about us being here 50 years? He'd probably just say, do it again. So that's what we do here in Springfield. We just keep on keeping on. Thank you for all of that. Springfield is a place that Rachel Lindsay romanticized. This was the golden city in his eyes. But he did a poem on the building of Springfield, and you all probably know it. But I would just read a couple stanzas, and you'll get the idea. But he said, "There's some city on the breast of Illinois, no wiser and no better at the start. By faith shall rise, redeemed by faith shall rise, bearing the western glory in her heart." And then he concludes it and says, "We must have many Lincoln-hearted citizens. A city is not builded in a day, and they must do their part and come and go while countless generations pass away." So Springfield, we've got more work to do. Thank you. I want to honor the founders. The paper was here for a couple years before I got here, and I talked recently with Bill Friedman, the founding publisher, who got the ball rolling, and he said that we couldn't have done what you did, meaning keep it going for 48 years. And then he said something that I truly agree with, but you couldn't have done what we did. And that's true. They came out here and he'll tell the story. We're going to have him on video pretty soon with other founders that'll give you a clip. But he traveled around and got ideas, and they put together a fresh weekly with different kinds of writers, and it was such a breath of fresh air 50 years ago. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bill Friedman. I'm the fellow who got this ball rolling half a century ago. First of all, congratulations. At a time when newspapers, big and small, dailies, weeklies, are falling by the wayside by the day, news deserts created throughout the country, Illinois Times has prevailed. You have accomplished a remarkable thing. The staff, present and past, congratulations. To supporters and advertisers, congratulations. And Bud, particularly to you, I doffed my hat. When I sold this newspaper to your family, I did so in part because I really felt that you have the intelligence, the drive, and the journalistic expertise to bring the paper to this day. And then there's this. Our country is in the hands today of an autocratic sociopath. Very few of us have a voice to stand up to this tyranny, but you do. You have Illinois Times, a newspaper, a strong and healthy newspaper in an important state capital. I am sure, under Bud's leadership, you will use that voice well as you continue to go from strength to strength. Congratulations, Illinois Times. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you very much.
Mazel y'all for keeping the presses rolling for half a century. Oops, that must mean I'm old. It started with a couple guys from Time magazine and a couple gals from Vassar, flying on the campaign trail with Dan Walker, covering Ronald Reagan's second unsuccessful run for the presidency, watching Dick Durbin parachute out of the sky for the beginning of his career. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was likely good prep for flying with Al Gore to Moscow and covering W's presidential campaign for Life magazine. But it was Illinois Times that got me started on a life of traveling the world, climbing up Mount Everest, canoeing down the Amazon, getting arrested in China, and drinking yak butter tea in Mongolia. Ick. Yak butter tea. And it all started here at the Illinois Times. Hope it's as wonderful for you as it was for me, though given the current state of journalism, that could be tough. Courage, keep it going. Happy 50th birthday, Illinois Times. Let's go for 100.
Greetings all. My name is Chris Skozinski, and I was in the production department of the Illinois Times. It was 1975, and I had recently graduated from Sangamon State University in Springfield with my degree in communications in a technological society. Because it was an alternative school, it taught me how to learn, not what to learn, and that came in handy because I had no idea how to be part of a newspaper. Jim was kind of the local connect for this group of four that blew in from the East Coast, Bill and Victoria and Alan and Claudia. They set a real high bar, and we all leapt at the chance to clear that bar. I was in the back room doing production on the typesetting machine. I was setting type and banging away on my machine and hanging up these wet galleys with little clothespins on strings on the sunny windows in the back room. And so I remember our work just being filled with laughter and bantering. I'm prouder still of how this beautiful little weekly newspaper is still going strong, still relevant, still excellent, and still staying strong in the face of the challenges of today's times. So congratulations, Bud. Congratulations to everybody who ever touched, worked, read, looked at this newspaper over these years. And cheers to 50 more years.
Greetings, I'm Victoria Pope, and 50 years ago I was a staff reporter at the Illinois Times. I was 24 and had very little experience in journalism, but Alan Anderson massaged my prose, and with each story I learned a little more. When I think back to those days, I am most struck about how different the process of producing the paper was from today. There was no internet, no email, and gathering information was largely done by interviewing people face to face. We wrote our stories on typewriters, and often what I sent to Alan was sheets of paper with lots of cut and paste sections. I mean really cut and paste, using scissors and Scotch tape. Alan edited on the same pages, and then the copy went to production manager Christine Skozinski, who typed it into a phototypesetting machine. The art director, Barb Donahue, laid out the pages. Barb and Chris made deadline day a blast, entertaining us with a stream of quips and jokes.
Hello, I'm the late Jim Crowe. I came late to the project. All the starring roles had been cast. It's like Hollywood. It depends on the writing. In this case, it worked. I was named a contributing editor, although I didn't contribute anything to the contents of Volume 1, Number 1. And that was, back then, they could get my opinions without even paying for them. I kept coming back week after week because the project and the people were the most interesting things going on in Springfield, and because any outfit where no one was doing exactly what he or she had been trained to do fit my vitae perfectly. I was the stray cat they never should have fed, because after that they couldn't get rid of me, and I'm very grateful.
Hi, my name is Alan Anderson. I joined Time magazine as a science reporter, where I met Bill Friedman. He began talking to me about a return to his native Springfield, where he fantasized that we might be able to build a new model of journalism with more independence, breadth, and roots in the local community. Bill's father, Lester, opened many doors and cheered us on. Advertisers sensed our enthusiasm and bought space. We managed to rent a historic house just down the block from the Lincoln home. Our overqualified staff were willing to work for ridiculously low wages. After about 3 years, Bill and I were played out, and luckily Bud Farrar arrived to take over. As I and others have written elsewhere, I'm proud of the role our staff played in growing the IT from a vague idea to a vigorous voice for the downstate. I wish the current staff of Springfield journalists has as much satisfaction as we have found at our time. Thanks very much. See you next time around.
Thank you, Fletcher. Appreciate that. My name is Scott Dahl. I'm the director of the Springfield Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'm here on behalf of Mayor Misty Buscher and the city of Springfield. We want to congratulate Illinois Times on a 50-year run, just an amazing run, and 50 years more to go. Before I read the proclamation, a personal note: when I was appointed director of the Springfield Convention Visitors Bureau in 2018, I made two big moves in the first 60 days. One was buying the Sunrise Donut sign. The other was calling Michelle Owenby and saying, how can we work together on a visitor guide? We had two visitor guides at the time. The Convention Visitors Bureau was printing one, and the Capital City Visitor. I said, how can we combine those? We came together. It's been one of the best moves that I've made in the past 7 years, is combining the Capital City Visitor with the Springfield Convention Visitors Bureau. So I appreciate the Illinois Times for that. Oh, by the way, the Sunrise Donut sign worked out, but there were calls for my resignation in the first 30 days after that, so that was going to be. Without further ado, on behalf of Mayor Misty Buscher, who sends her regrets, by the way, that she could not be here today. Whereas Illinois Times, founded in 1975, has served Springfield, Sangamon County, and the surrounding region with independent, community-focused journalism for 50 years. And whereas in an era of steep declines in local news coverage, with more than 200 U.S. counties lacking any news outlet, Illinois Times has never missed a week of publishing, including during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the publication continues to thrive with a strong weekly print circulation of 20,000 copies and a 94% pickup rate, while also expanding its digital presence through newsletters, daily online content, and multimedia reporting. And whereas the Illinois Times has been selected to host a full-time reporter through the prestigious Report for America program, helping to fill critical news gaps and strengthen coverage of underreported topics in our community. And whereas the newspaper's commitment to fact-based local reporting plays a vital role in preserving civic engagement, transparency, and an informed public. And now, therefore, on behalf of Misty Buscher, Mayor of the Springfield, Illinois, together with the Springfield City Council, we do hereby recognize and celebrate the Illinois Times in recognition of its 50 years of service and encourage all residents to support and celebrate the value of strong, independent journalism. Bud, congratulations.